think I didn't do anything wrong, just made a mistake with someone who actually listened to me. It was supposed to be a secret, something that would never touch the wedding itself. But the moment the music started and he didn't show up at the altar, I realized everyone already knew. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I wanted our wedding to be perfect, flawless, unforgettable, something that would make people talk for years. Adrian used to laugh when I said that. He'd tell me, "You care more about the show than the marriage." I'd smile and say he just didn't understand aesthetics. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he also didn't understand how lonely it feels to plan something that's supposed to be the happiest day of your life while your fiancé acts like a guest. That's how Julian came in. He was our wedding planner. Smooth voice, neat suits. Calm even when I changed my mind for the third time about the table settings. From the first meeting, he made me feel like I was being heard. When I said I wanted gold accents instead of silver, he didn't roll his eyes like Adrian did. He said, "Gold catches the light better. It'll make you glow." I remember blushing even though I told myself it was just flattery, part of his job. We started working late at the venue sometimes. He'd pour wine and talk about how most brides were too stressed to enjoy their own weddings. I told him I refused to be one of those women. He smiled and said, "You're not like them." It was such a simple line, but it hooked something inside me. Adrian barely noticed when I stayed late. He'd be home drafting blueprints or scrolling through budget sheets, half listening when I talked about floral arrangements. Once, he said, "You're turning this into a performance." I said, "A wedding is a performance, Adrian." He didn't argue, just went quiet. That silence pushed me closer to Julian. One night, after a long meeting about seating charts, I thanked Julian for handling everything so gracefully. He said he didn't mind the extra hours. It meant more time with me. I laughed, maybe too loud, and said he was charming. He looked at me for a moment, then said, "You don't hear that enough, do you?" Something about the way he said it made my chest tighten. We were alone in the ballroom, the lights dimmed, soft music still playing from an earlier sound test. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, cedar and something warm. I told myself it was just chemistry, not temptation. But then he brushed a stray hair from my face and I didn't step back. I should have. I didn't. It was quick, impulsive. One of those moments that feel small until you realize how much they'll cost. When it ended, I whispered, "This never happened." He nodded, eyes calm, like it was a business agreement. Driving home, I rehearsed what I'd say if Adrian asked why I was late. He didn't even look up from his laptop when I walked in. I kissed his head, said, "Everything's coming together beautifully." He said, "Good," without looking away from the screen. And that's when I decided I deserved to feel seen, even if it wasn't by the man I was about to marry. The next few weeks blurred into planning, fittings, and messages I shouldn't have answered. Julian started texting me at night, first about logistics, then about nothing at all. "Did you eat? You were incredible today." Don't let anyone dull that confidence. I told myself it was harmless, that he was just invested in his client. I even joked once that he was too good at his job. He replied, "You make it easy." Adrian never checked my phone. He wasn't that kind of man. He trusted people, sometimes too much. He thought I was busy finalizing details. He didn't see the way my hand shook when Julian's name lit up the screen. We talked about everything, colors, music, the kind of life I wanted. He listened, which felt dangerous. When I complained that Adrian didn't care about centerpieces or speeches, Julian said softly, "He's not building a day, he's building a life. You're the dreamer. That's what makes you special." It was like he'd studied me and knew exactly where to press. I liked feeling understood, even if it was wrong. I convinced myself it wasn't an affair if it never went further than that one night. But the boundary kept sliding. One afternoon, he took me to a boutique to approve decor samples. When the clerk stepped away, he brushed my hand with his thumb and whispered, "I think about you too much." I should have pulled away, but instead, I smiled. That night, I deleted our messages, just in case. Rachel noticed the next day when I couldn't stop glancing at my phone. She said, "You're acting weird. Is it wedding stress?" I said, "Of course." She didn't look convinced. Then, one evening, while loading things into my car after a venue visit, Julian's cufflink fell out of the back seat. I recognized it immediately, silver with a blue stone, the same pair he wore to every meeting. I panicked, tossed it into my purse and drove home rehearsing excuses I might never need. But when I walked in, Adrian was standing by the kitchen counter, holding something small between his fingers. My stomach turned cold. It was the other cufflink. He said, "Found this while cleaning the car. Fancy, huh?" I forced a laugh and said maybe it belonged to one of the decorators. He didn't smile. "You've been spending a lot of time there," he said quietly. I told him not to start another argument, that I was doing all this for us. He nodded, put the cufflink down and said, "Then I'm sure there's nothing to worry about." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time he shifted beside me, I thought he'd say something, but he didn't. I stared at the ceiling, telling myself he was overthinking, that he'd forget. But deep down, I knew better. Silence wasn't peace, it was evidence being collected. The rehearsal dinner was supposed to calm everyone down, but from the start, it felt tense. My mother fussed over table placements, Rachel kept avoiding my eyes, and Adrian acted polite to the point of cruelty. He smiled, poured wine for everyone, made toasts about fresh beginnings, and never once looked at me for longer than a second. Every gesture felt rehearsed, like he was playing the role of a happy groom because someone was watching. Julian was there, of course, directing staff, adjusting centerpieces, greeting guests with that same calm professionalism that used to charm me. I thought we could keep it together, that no one would notice. But when he leaned over my shoulder to whisper something about the lighting, I felt Rachel's eyes on us. She didn't blink, she just watched. Later, when I stood up to speak, my hands trembled so badly I had to hold the microphone with both. I made some joke about pre-wedding nerves, and everyone laughed except her. After dinner, I slipped away to the hallway outside the event room. Julian followed minutes later. I told him this had to stop, that Adrian was starting to suspect. He looked frustrated, said I couldn't expect him to pretend nothing happened. "You said it meant something," he whispered. I told him I didn't know what I'd said, that I was stressed, that we both made mistakes. His face hardened. "You used me," he said. "You think everything is decoration, even people." I was about to answer when Rachel's voice came from behind us. "What's going on?" she asked. My heart dropped. I turned around, tried to smile, said we were talking about the seating chart. Julian muttered something under his breath and walked away. Rachel stepped closer, eyes sharp. "You're lying," she said quietly. "I heard enough to know you crossed a line." I snapped at her, told her to mind her own business, that she didn't understand the pressure I was under. She said, "You're about to marry a good man, and you're throwing it away for attention." Her voice wasn't angry, just sad. That made it worse. I told her she was jealous, that she always wanted what I had. She shook her head and said, "You need help, Clara. I can't keep covering for you." I didn't even realize she'd been covering anything. That thought scared me more than her words. I grabbed her arm and said, "You're not telling him. You'll ruin everything." She pulled away and said, "You already did." Then she walked off, leaving me alone in the echoing hall. When I returned to the dinner, Adrian was gone. My mother said he'd stepped outside with Julian to discuss some changes. My chest went tight. I found them near the entrance, standing too far apart to be friendly, but close enough to look serious. When they noticed me, both stopped talking. Adrian smiled faintly and said, "Everything's perfect, Clara." It should have sounded comforting. Instead, it felt like a warning. The morning of the wedding felt unreal, like I'd woken up inside someone else's life. The bridal suite was full of flowers and noise, hairdryers, perfume, laughter that didn't feel real. My mother kept saying how proud she was, how beautiful everything looked. I smiled on command, but inside I felt hollow. Rachel wasn't there. She'd sent a short text at dawn. "I can't do this, I'm sorry." No explanation, just that. My chest tightened, but I deleted it before anyone could see. Julian arrived an hour later, calm as ever, clipboard in hand. He said everything was running smoothly. The band had arrived, the weather was perfect, the guests were seated. He spoke like we hadn't nearly ruined each other's lives 2 nights ago. I wanted to hate him for that composure. I wanted him to care. When he adjusted the flowers on my veil, his hand brushed my shoulder, and I flinched. My mother noticed and asked if everything was okay. I said, "Just nerves." Then one of the assistants rushed in, whispering something to Julian. His expression barely changed, but I saw it, a flicker of panic. I asked what was wrong, and he said, "Nothing you need to worry about." That's when I knew something was off. Minutes later, my mother came back from checking the main hall, her face pale. "Where's Adrian?" she asked. I said he was probably with his groomsmen. She shook her head. "They're all here. He's not." I laughed automatically, but my throat went dry. I called his phone, straight to voicemail. I told myself maybe he needed a minute, that it was tradition for the groom to get cold feet. But when the photographer whispered to a bridesmaid, when guests started checking their watches, when Julian's voice went low as he spoke to the venue staff, I felt the room tilt. My mother demanded to know what was happening. I told her to calm down, that everything was fine. But she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was looking at Julian, whose face had gone completely white. She asked him what he knew. He said quietly, "Mrs. Monroe, this isn't my place." Her eyes darted between us, connecting the pieces. I could see it happen in real time. The realization, the disgust, the betrayal. She whispered, "Clara, what did you do?" Before I could answer, one of the ushers walked in holding a folded letter. "This was left in the groom's room," he said. I grabbed it before anyone else could. My name was written in Adrian's neat handwriting. Inside, one line. "Marrying you would be my biggest mistake." I froze. My mother gasped. Julian stepped forward like he might say something, but she turned on him, eyes full of rage. "Get out," she hissed. "Both of you." Outside, I could hear the music start, the cue for the ceremony that would never happen. The guests were waiting, but the groom wasn't. And the truth was, neither was I. By the next morning, the story was already everywhere. Someone from the venue must have leaked it. A runaway groom, whispers of infidelity, a wedding planner caught in the middle. The photos were humiliating. Me standing in my gown beside the empty aisle, my mother trying to comfort me while reporters snapped pictures through the gates. I didn't leave my apartment for 2 days. When I finally did, there was a letter waiting in the mailbox, stamped with a law firm's logo, Hale and Associates, representing Mr. Adrian Monroe. Inside was a petition for annulment, citing premeditated deception and moral breach prior to contract. My hands went numb. Attached were exhibits, screenshots of text messages between Julian and me, time-stamped call logs, even venue security footage from the rehearsal dinner hallway. Adrian hadn't stormed off in anger. He'd left with evidence. I called him, of course. He didn't answer. I tried again and again, until his mother picked up instead. "You should speak through your lawyer," she said flatly. "Adrian wants no contact." Then she added, almost gently, "You did this to yourself." I contacted Julian next, but his number was disconnected. The venue manager said he'd resigned for personal reasons. That's when I realized I was truly alone. Even Rachel wouldn't take my calls. I left her a voicemail saying she'd ruined everything by telling him, but deep down, I knew she hadn't needed to. Adrian had known before I said my vows. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Morgan Hale, his attorney. She explained the settlement terms like she was discussing the weather. "The annulment will be filed publicly," she said. "Our client requests reimbursement for the venue and catering costs. He's also seeking a restraining order should you attempt further contact." I tried to argue, to cry, to say it wasn't what it looked like. Morgan didn't flinch. "It's exactly what it looks like," she said. When I left her office, the reporters were waiting again. Someone shouted, "Clara, did you really sleep with your planner?" I didn't answer. I just kept walking, pretending not to hear, wishing I could go back to when everything was still just a secret between two people who thought no one would ever find out. The annulment was finalized a month later. I didn't even go to court. My lawyer said it would be cleaner if I stayed away. I signed the papers in silence, watching my name return to what it was before: Clara Monroe, single, untethered, erased. Adrian never reached out again. His mother sent a short email saying the family wished to move forward privately. Julian vanished completely. Sometimes I wondered if they ever spoke, if they compared stories about me like a cautionary tale. The venue refunded half the deposit, but it didn't matter. No one wanted to work with me after that. Clients pulled contracts. My boss suggested I take an indefinite leave, and my mother refused to answer my calls. One evening, I went back to the estate. The gates were locked, the lights off. Through the bars, I could still see the arch where I was supposed to say my vows. For a moment, I imagined Adrian standing there, waiting, calm, patient, kind. Then the wind shifted, and the illusion was gone. I told myself I'd only wanted the perfect wedding, but standing there alone in the dark, I finally understood. I'd built something flawless, and then destroyed it myself. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.